All of you who are here today, all of you let your horns, your trucks, your voices, and your presence here today show that we stand together behind our Premier Scott Moe in this fight. Against this punitive carbon tax, yes. Against this punitive carbon tax, against Bill C-48 and C-69, and that we are all in agreement that this country needs pipelines built to get our resources to market. I'd also like to thank all of those women and men who were so instrumental in organizing this terrific day and making it a reality for all of us to be here. Let's give them a round. It's a long list, I'm not going to single anyone out, but let's give them that round of applause we did. Thank you. I'd also like to thank all of the different municipal police forces, the RCMP and highway services. They've all been great to work with, and we appreciate today what they did and what they do every day. They got us in here We also have a lot of elected officials here. Thank you for coming. I'm not going to single everyone out just because there's a lot of you. My name is Dan Cugnett. I will be your MC for this afternoon. I'm the chair of Valley View Petroleums, a family-owned private oil producer based out of Weyburn, Saskatchewan. I'm also a farmer and rancher and proud to be in a partnership in both agriculture and the energy industry with my three brothers and our families. Today's rally is about our economy and jobs, but most importantly, it's about Canadian families. And when I say Canadian families, I mean all Canadian families. Whether they live on the BC coast, the interior, in the north and the territories, across the prairies, our neighbors in Ontario and Quebec, and all of our friends in the Maritimes. In the spirit of that inclusion, I would like to recognize and acknowledge here today that we are on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Today we will speak about what this current Liberal government is costing all Canadians. Whether those Canadians work in the oil and gas sector, agriculture, education, health, the service and hospitality sector, journalism, public sector, manufacturing, the auto sector, we are all affected by these federal decisions. We all lose out on these lost dollars that could do so much for our communities, our families, and our children. Billions have been lost annually that could build hundreds of hospitals, schools, and highways each year. Think of that. Our federal environment minister says she wants to help the children. Well, Minister McKenna, how about we get one of these pipelines built and actually generate some revenues from the private sector to help children in the healthcare system who require immediate care now, rather than dump another $20 billion deficit on our children year after year that drags our economy and our dollar lower. How about we get one of these pipeline projects going to create jobs for the parents of some of these children who are here today and who are waiting to go to work so they can feed and house their families. Minister McKenna, how about we build a pipeline and actually create economic opportunity for workers in the energy sector? And Indigenous and Aboriginal communities in this country in the far north, Alberta and BC, where they are waiting for these projects to commence. These remote and rural areas want to make a better life for their families as well. Think of the monies that could help with infrastructure projects all over Canada that are in rural and remote areas for things like water and waste treatment. Or perhaps we could use those dollars for waste treatment in communities like Victoria and Montreal. I hear they could also use some help in this department. Let me be perfectly clear when I say there is no freedom anywhere in this country without economic freedom. Denying economic opportunity to Canadians and Canadian communities is the worst kind of oppression. This is what this Liberal government has given all Canadians: double standards, division, lost opportunities, and economic oppression. Welcome to Canada under Prime Minister Trudeau and the Liberal Party, where you have the freedom to choose anything you want unless it's free enterprise. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in the oil and ag business with my three brothers. Perhaps the greatest gift these two industries have given me is that opportunity to be in business with my family and also be able to give back and contribute to our community of Weyburn and this great province of Saskatchewan. The domestic policies of the federal Liberal government is punishing family businesses like ours across this great province and country. Trudeau's government seeks to divide all of the peoples of this great nation and have us think that we need to choose families in one province or sector over another family elsewhere. I can tell you that isn't what Canada is. That's not the Canada that any of us want. And the sooner Mr. Trudeau is gone, the better off everyone in this country. We're going to hear people talk today about the carbon tax, which has nothing to do with improving the environment or climate change and everything to do with the federal government placing a production tax on certain industries in certain provinces. A gang of entitled, incompetent eco-zealots have hijacked the Liberal Party of Canada and decided that they should pick who the winners and losers are in our economy. And lately, the winners are an engineering company convicted of criminal offenses and bribery all over the globe. As opposed to all the farmers in this room who are sequestering carbon annually through improved techniques and technologies. We're going to hear about Bill C-69 and Bill C-48, which are in the simplest terms about eliminating and prohibiting the private sector from ever building pipelines to Tidewater and allowing the export of Alberta oil from BC waters. On what planet does that remotely make sense? As I stand here and speak, tankers carrying crude from Alaska traverse these same waters and coastlines to Washington State. This summer, massive cruise ships and ferries loaded with millions of liters of fuel and bunker oil will make thousands of trips through these waters every hour of every day. So why not boats with Alberta and Saskatchewan crude? Tankers carrying crude from the Middle East and other parts of the world are transporting these products up and down the St. Lawrence River and eastern coastline of Canada as we speak, to be refined and used to power all industries of our modern society. So why not boats with Alberta and Saskatchewan crude? These political policies and acts of aggression towards your own people, Mr. Trudeau, your fellow Canadians, creates a dangerous double standard in a country that prides itself on equality. There is no equality in this. This is modern day feudalism. This is oppression, and this is wrong. I'll say it again, there is no freedom without economic freedom. Economic freedom and the Trudeau brand cannot coexist, so Canada and the Trudeau brand cannot coexist. These policies cost all Canadians billions of dollars in lost tax revenue, lost investment, and lost jobs. This isn't just about the oil and gas sector and agriculture. It never has been, despite the Liberals' best effort to spin it as such. This is about all the families of this great country of ours, and all the great families in this room, missing out on investment in infrastructure and dollars that can better all of us today, tomorrow, and into the future. Why, Mr. Prime Minister, do we hurt our domestic energy industry when global consumption continues to grow to 1 million plus barrels each and every year, and is currently over 100 million barrels per day? How, Mr. Prime Minister, is the increased transportation of crude by rail and truck better for the environment and safer than pipelines, when we desperately need to get our grain to ports by rail as well? Why, Mr. Prime Minister, do we sell our oil for a discount to the United States as they export production at full sticker price? We're all happy and proud to have the United States as our great neighbor to the south, but I think we can all agree it is not up to Canada to subsidize their economy and energy needs any longer. This rally is about planting our flag, our Canadian flag, in the ground and looking east towards Ottawa and letting the Liberal government know that their days in power are numbered. We will never stop fighting this carbon tax and these catastrophic bills. Canadians are ready for a change, and October cannot come soon enough. So, my friends, I thank you again for coming today. This is your rally. This is our country, and this is a huge step in us all taking it back. Thank you. It's now with great pleasure that I'd like to introduce some of the members that are present here from the House and bring them up, and we're going to hear some words from them. Robert Kitchen, our representative from Moose Mountain, Souris Moose Mountain, sorry. Tom McKiskey, Moose Jaw, Lake Sarah Lanigan, Kathy Wagenthal, Yorkton, Melville, David Anderson, Cypress Hill, and Cram as well, and Warren Steinley, who will be running for the next election. That's October. I'm proud to introduce my member of Parliament now, who's been working hard for us in Ottawa, Mr. Robert Kitchen.
Wow, what a room. Can you see me way back there? All right, that's great to see. Who can believe that you get 2,000 people, 700 trucks, you bring them from all reaches of this province. Some of you got up at 7, 6, 5 o'clock in the morning to get here. When you should be out getting ready for seeding, when you should be out working on your trucks, getting yourself ready so that when road bans are done, that you can get out and doing those things. So I want to thank all of you for coming here, and this is your day, and I want you to really enjoy that and celebrate the day that you're here. So thank you for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, on April 1st, life got more expensive for you. The carbon tax came in, and it was put on your doorstep without you having a say in it. And it's going to charge you daily at $20 a ton now, and it will go up $10 a ton every year thereafter. It'll be $50 a ton in 2022, and the Liberals are not telling you what it will be after that date. They have documents that say it will be $300 a ton. That's 6 times what you're going to pay on that. This is not acceptable. This expense trickles down to every small businessman, every farmer, every oil field worker, and it cripples you and your family and living your daily lives. I have been asked many times since this rally was mentioned, why is it worth doing this? When it comes to rallies and it comes to events, especially on a tax that's already in place. And my answer to that is simply, how can you afford not to do this? This carbon tax is a huge cost. This carbon tax will kill jobs. It will make life more expensive for you and every Canadian from coast to coast to coast. Our industries are going to be affected in a major way, despite the exemptions they may have been given. Those who run businesses, those who in the agriculture industry, those in the energy sector, are being forced to make changes on how you run your business. You're going to have to make decisions on how you employ your people. Do you lay people off? How are you going to do that if they continue to build this tax upon you? So ladies and gentlemen, today you are here taking a stand, showing your disgust for this Liberal government. You are here showing the Liberals and saying to them, we do not, we will not accept this carbon tax. You are here to say, put shovels in the ground, build the pipelines. You are here today to say a resounding no to Bill C-69, the no more pipeline legislation. You are here to say no to C-48, the no more tanker legislation. Bills that we will scrap as soon as the Liberals are out. Getting rid of the Liberals will get rid of the carbon tax. We've said it and we will stand by it. So I'd like to thank you for all being here today, for your tireless support, your tireless dedication, and standing up for what you believe. Myself and my Conservative colleagues will continue to fight for you on your behalf and make certain that we can scrap this tax. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I'm going to now introduce Michael Cram, who will be, and with your help, will be the next Member of Parliament for Wascana.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many people here standing up for our resource sector. I'd like to start by acknowledging some of my fellow Conservative candidates and members of Parliament. We have from Surrey Moose Mountain, Robert Kitchen. We have from Moose Jaw Lake Center, Lanigan, Tom Lukiski. From Cypress Hills Grasslands, we have David Anderson. From Yorkton Melville, we have Kathy Wagenthal. And from Regina Louvain, we have Warren Steinley. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Cram, and I'm the Conservative Party candidate for Regina Wascana. Far too often, people in this province think that what goes on in rural Saskatchewan doesn't affect what goes on in the cities, and vice versa. This way of thinking needs to end if we're going to move forward in making our society the best place we can be. Here's why. In any given year, over 10% of the provincial government's revenues come from natural resources. That money goes to pay for roads and schools and hospitals and seniors' homes so that everyone is better off. But if those resources stay in the ground, that means we can't build new schools or fund services we all rely on, and our standard of living suffers as a result. Oil and natural gas and potash aren't doing anyone any good just sitting there in the ground. But getting resources out of the ground is only half the story. A barrel of oil isn't much good if we can't get it to our customers. In order to get the best price for our resources, we need to get them to world markets. That means getting grain on the trains and oil in the pipe. That means getting pipelines built. We need to get pipelines built to the West Coast. We need to get pipelines built to the East Coast. We need to get this infrastructure in place so that we can get the best price for our resources instead of always selling at a discount to our neighbors to the south. The Liberal government of Justin Trudeau and Ralph Goodale has failed miserably. They haven't gotten pipelines built and have brought in a carbon tax instead. That's why it's time for a new federal government, a Conservative government led by Andrew Scheer and with me, Michael Cram, as the Member of Parliament for Regina Wascana. I've always believed that we have an obligation to leave society better for our children and grandchildren. Imagine for a minute if our ancestors never built the railway. Imagine if our ancestors never homesteaded this land or never built the Trans-Canada Highway. We wouldn't have this society that we have today. We wouldn't have this great city or this great province or this great country. In the same way that our predecessors built this country for us, we have an obligation to get these pipelines built and develop our oil and natural gas sector so that our children and grandchildren have a better future. And that is what I will work towards as the next Member of Parliament for Regina Wascana. Thank you so much for being here.
I want another round of applause for all our MPs that are out there running in the cold. Our next speaker has been a key organizer of today, a tireless worker for this rally. He's been a strong voice for agriculture, against the carbon tax, these ever-increasing trade issues that the ag sector faces, and he's been personally attacked as a result of this. We've just gotten to know each other, but I'm proud to call him my friend. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce him today, Mr. Jason LeBlanc.
Thank you. My name is Jason LeBlanc. I am a farmer. I am a son of a farmer. And I'm a dad to potential farmers. I'm an auctioneer. I'm a family man. I'm involved in my community. I grew up on a mixed farming operation with grain land and several hundred head of cattle. Through my professional career as an auctioneer, I've helped transition thousands of farmers and their families into successful retirement programs. I've also helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for charities such as cancer, Star Ambulance, hospital fundraisers, etc., etc. As a family man, I've helped contribute to our local rinks, hockey teams, sports teams, 4-H clubs, and many other kids' events. That's who I am. For years, agricultural producers have worked long, hard hours to contribute and build an industry that is well respected around the world. Global consumers have always had confidence in Canadian products until the personal agenda of Justin Trudeau came into effect. Since then, we have seen more than our fair share of challenges, industry declines, landlocked resources, bin-locked grains, canola and pulses, increased regulations, and of course, the carbon tax. Trudeau, who has been more concerned with being as a celebrity around the globe, continues to be our country's biggest demise. Yep. Let's go back in history. India, Saskatchewan's third largest trading partner and one of the largest importers of peas and lentils, applied tariffs, which have had a detrimental effect on our agricultural economy. In 2016 alone, it equated close to $1.1 billion loss. Now enter Justin Trudeau and his $1.66 million trip to India. The goal of the trip, to get $1 billion worth of investment. The reality of the trip, he only got $250 million and did nothing to alleviate the tariffs and tensions applied to our Canadian farmers. These issues have yet to be resolved and are being left in the hands of our province and Premier Scott Moe to try to defuse the situation. A major economic driver and one of the most valuable commodities in Canada is canola. According to the Global News, our industry is worth nearly $27 billion, employs 250,000 people, and is home to 43,000 growers. The recent import blocked by China could cost our economy and producers nearly $2.7 billion. Approximately 40% of canola produced by Canadian farmers is supplied to China. In my opinion, these are retaliatory efforts, but it could also be that the rest of the world is fed up with our federal government. Yep. The lies, the corruption, and the deceit is the beginning of a global erosion of trust with some of our strongest trading partners and allies. Even though our industries have suffered financial blows in the billions of dollars, Trudeau decides that now is the time to enact a carbon tax. Make no mistake about it, he uses the environment as an excuse to increase government revenues due to his reckless spending and inability to balance a budget. Minister McKenna and Prime Minister Trudeau do not recognize that the ag industry has been well ahead of the game on environmental issues. We have embraced zero-till, crop rotations, cover crops, GPS technologies, auto-steer, irrigation, precise farming, shelter belts. The list goes on and on. Farmers have paid dearly for forced technological advancements in equipment just to satisfy government regulations. Our agricultural industry has been successful through these practices and we have reduced carbon from the atmosphere. However, to the surprise of many, we have found useful ways to use CO2 in other industries. The Prairie Resilience Strategy was created by the Sask Party government as an innovative way to tackle climate change without charging or penalizing the people of the province. Through this, we have seen the great work that the province has done, including the construction and development of the world's first clean coal carbon capture storage project in my hometown of Estevan, Saskatchewan. Which, as of February January 2019 has captured 2,573,685 tons of CO2. Since its inception, it has taken off the equivalent of 643,421 cars off the road. Good things are happening right across the country to tackle cyclical climate change, and there are many alternatives other than a tax. A majority of businesses who face this tax will have the opportunity to pass this added expense on to the consumer. This makes living much more expensive in all areas of our lives. But for us in the ag sector, we do not get to pass it on. You better believe that once the product leaves the manufacturer, you, in your private homes, will all pay for the added cost of a carbon tax. Make no mistakes about it, Canadians right across this country will continue to suffer great harm and consequences from the decision of this current federal government. The tax will affect everyone, our income and way of living that we know it and that we become accustomed to. In my opinion, it will kill industrial jobs, weaken the ag and oil sectors, and ultimately kill our economy. What is even more disheartening is that Ralph Goodale, also known as Mr. Saskatchewan, has done nothing to stand up for our province. There are members elected to our House of Commons that are standing up to the corruption, deceit, lies of the current government every day, yet we hear nothing from him. He would rather stand up for Trudeau's demise of the agriculture, oil and gas sectors which our country was built upon. Mr. Goodale, it is time to drop the party lines and represent the province that you call home. The pride that you, Mr. Trudeau, take in shutting down the two of Canada's main economic drivers is repulsive. The decision of this current government have consequences that you will ultimately demise all of our industries as we know them. I, Jason LeBlanc, have asked you at a Regina town hall. I, Jason LeBlanc, have participated in a convoy across Canada, and I am here today to continue to seek a truthful answer on how the carbon tax will benefit Canadians. Is this to propel your personal agenda and promotion in the future? Is this your time to save your spot on a higher stage? Is this a form of wealth redistribution? We want real answers because we are tired of suffering while you are living an elite lifestyle off the backs of all of us in this room and hardworking Canadians. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker today needs no introduction. On October 3rd, 2016, at a federal environment minister meeting in Montreal, when all of the provincial ministers had gathered in good faith to discuss collaboration and efforts on environmental policies, as talks were about to get underway, these ministers were informed. No, they weren't informed, they were ambushed. All of these ministers and provinces were ambushed by the federal government and told from up on high, an edict from somewhere else, an ultimatum that we were all getting a federal carbon tax or else. It didn't matter if we were leaders on carbon sequestration or if we had made in Saskatchewan solutions that were actually creating positive change. Pay this tax or else. Well, one environment minister got up and walked out. One environment minister called it out for what it was. It was underhanded and sneaky, and a federal government changing the rules midstream. Doesn't sound familiar, does it? Well, I'm proud to say that environment minister is still fighting for us as our premier of this great province now that we call home. He's going to keep fighting for us day in and day out. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our premier, Scott Moore.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, everyone. And good afternoon. Good afternoon to the largest truck convoy ever in the history of the world. And let me say to the rest of Canada, welcome to the silent majority. What an absolutely great turnout. What an incredible turnout. I want to start just with a couple of thank yous because today doesn't happen without a lot of hard work from a whole number of different people. And I want to start with the Regina Police Service, the RCMP, the first responders. Thank the organizers of today's event. We are very indebted to the effort that you've made over the course of the last number of weeks and a few of the lumps that a few of you have taken along the way. Thank you. I want to thank our sponsors, but I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today. You could be anywhere today, but you chose to be here to make sure that your voice is heard in this great nation of ours. This convoy, your convoy, it's converged here in our province's capital city, but it's came from all across our great province, from virtually every sector in our economy. We have trucks here from the energy sector. We have trucks here from agriculture, from mining, from manufacturing. You're all here from all parts of our economy today, and the fact that you are here tells me something about your values. It tells me something about your character. It tells me something about your families, your co-workers, and the communities that you live in. It tells me that you care about the future of this province and you care about the future of this great nation that we all live in. And today, we, all of us together, we're sending a message that can be heard from coast to coast to coast, a message that is as clear as a prairie sky, and it's a message directly to the Prime Minister of this nation. It's time that we came together to defend our world-class resource industries. The industries that create wealth, they create hope, and they create opportunity all across Canada. Yes. For us to work together to bring down the barriers that are the barriers to responsible resource development and the thousands of jobs that we all know come with that responsible resource development. It's time for us to roll back the destructive carbon tax that will do nothing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, a carbon tax that will do nothing but kill jobs and drive investment out of our province and out of our communities. My friends, it's time to get our great province of Saskatchewan working again. It's time for us to work together to get our great nation of Canada working again. And we will get Canada working again because there's another convoy that's on the horizon. And I'm proud to say that that convoy has been led by your great province, the province of Saskatchewan, and for the longest time, ladies and gentlemen, we were the only rig on the road. Saskatchewan was the only province that had stepped out and was opposing this federal carbon tax. And I want to personally thank you for all of the support that you have lent, and through you to all of the people in your communities, all of the support that you have offered to myself and the guy that sat in my chair before I had the opportunity, Brad Wall. We say thank you to each of you for the support. One year ago, it was Saskatchewan alone. Now, it's Saskatchewan and New Brunswick and Ontario and Manitoba. And very shortly, it may be Alberta. That will be 5 provinces representing 60% of the population of our great nation, the population of Canada, that will oppose this federal carbon tax. And yesterday, I'm sure many of you saw the news, Manitoba has launched another legal challenge against this federal carbon tax. It was announced that the Premier Pallister for Manitoba had tweeted this out shortly after this was announced. He said, "The federal carbon tax threatens jobs. and economic growth in Manitoba. It makes it more expensive to feed our families and to keep them warm during the winter. It hurts northern Manitobans, it hurts our agricultural industry and our transportation sector. Well, let me tell you what's true for Manitoba is true for Saskatchewan, and it's true right across Canada. And we welcome Manitoba as an ally in the courts. We welcome them, and folks, we have heard of our Prime Minister talking many times. He talks a lot about supporting our middle class. He talks a lot about supporting the importance of a growing economy, and we've all heard how the environment and the economy go hand in hand. Well, here's what we need in this province to be successful. We need market access for our products. 2, we need the ability to get our goods to market by road, by rail, by pipeline. And 3, we need a tax and regulatory structure that allows us to compete with our competitors around the world. If we get those 3 things, we are successful in this province. But then we stand back and we look at what our Liberal government in Ottawa is delivering to us today. Not helpful on 1, 2, or 3. What they are delivering is Bill C-48, the No More Tankers bill. What they are delivering is Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill. We have pipelines projects across this nation that are stalled. Pipelines are not getting built. And we have a federal government that, in addition to that, is delivering us with a federally imposed carbon tax. We look at these policies and you just try to tell me that this is a federal government that supports working people in this country. You try to convince me that they care about what happens to you, what happens to your family, or what happens to your community, or what happens to your job in the industry that you work in. Now, just before I go on, I want to mention one other individual that hasn't joined us here today. The leader of the official opposition in Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan NDP leader, Ryan Miley's not here.
Where's Ryan?
As you heard this past week, the NDP leader decided not to come today because he thinks his rally is motivated by anti-immigrant sentiments. Of course, we all know that's nonsense. This rally is motivated by policy decisions that have been made by our federal government that restrict the growth of our province. They restrict the growth of our economy. They restrict the growth of our jobs in our communities that we all live in. And they restrict the growth of our population in those communities. Saskatchewan that we know and we love and the communities across our province, we have welcomed thousands of newcomers to our communities to live, to work, to raise their families. And in the last decade, we have actually welcomed into this province 165,000 people. That's almost the size of our capital city. Another Regina in the province. That's the growth that we've experienced. Of 165,000 people, 123,000 of them came from other areas of the world, from outside our nation. 123,000 people from 180 countries who have settled now in our province in over 430 communities. They're your neighbor and they're mine. And they moved here because of the opportunity, because there's hope, and because there's a job. They've moved here to build a career, to create a business or to raise their family and to contribute to this province that we love. And we're grateful that they chose this province of Saskatchewan. But ladies and gentlemen, as we know, none of this is why the NDP leader is not attending here today. And I think we can all agree on this. The real reason that Mr. Miley is not here today is because he actually supports a Trudeau carbon tax. The real reason he's not here today is because he actually opposes the construction of pipelines. And the real reason he's not here today is because he has absolutely no interest in hearing from anyone, from any of you, who don't share his point of view. It's pretty clear to me that the NDP does not support you. Why on earth would any of you ever support them? Meanwhile, in Ottawa, we have a federal government that's displaying its own kind of contempt. The federal government actually generally wanted and was concerned and wanted to support our workers in Saskatchewan and Western Canada and across the nation, it would kill Bill C-69 immediately. There's no better example, to my knowledge, of any anti-worker legislation in this country than that bill, Bill C-69. The No More Pipelines bill, as it's been dubbed. The No More Potash mine bill, I would add to that. The No More Uranium mine bill, I would add to that. The No More Industry in Saskatchewan bill, I would add to that. In Canada, we already have one of the most stringent environmental review processes in the world. This is a process that we can be so proud of. Billions of dollars are spent by private industry, surprise, each and every year, ensuring that our projects are in compliance with environmental laws. What country in the world, you tell me this, what country in the world has a more stringent environmental process? Do the countries that deliver oil by tanker to Eastern Canada, to Eastern Canadian ports, have a stronger environmental law than we do in Western Canada? I think not. Does Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Venezuela, or Iraq, do they care more about the environment than we do here in Western Canada? My friends, we don't need a major overhaul of our Canadian environmental process. What we need is an environmental review process that works for you and works for all Canadians. What we are getting is Bill C-69, which essentially, by the way, killed Energy East. Now, we all know Energy East, the value to us here in Saskatchewan, but it's also a nation-building project. In every respect, it most certainly is. It's a project that would create jobs in virtually every province in the nation of Canada. A project that would displace oil coming from these countries that I mentioned that have such lower environmental rigor laws in their respective countries. And the Liberal government has said no to Energy East. Just like they said no to the Northern Gateway pipeline with Bill C-48, the oil tanker ban. The consequence, here's the consequence of continuing to say no. When you say no often enough, people start to get the message. Investors get the message. They understand that they just aren't welcome there. And as we know, in our industry's capital is very mobile. And it's moving south in many cases. We have billions of dollars now that is moving into North Dakota, it's moving into Texas, and it's moving into New Mexico. Here in Canada, we have the third largest proven oil reserves in the world. It's clean, it's sustainably produced energy, yet we don't have, and we don't get, world prices for our energy because we just simply can't build a pipeline across this great nation of ours. We lose billions of dollars each and every year. And I would say not only in this province, but everyone in Canada is shortchanged by that fact. I say everyone in Canada because the resource sector that we participate in, the resource sector in this country pays billions of dollars in royalties and taxes. Those dollars support the quality of life that we have in this province and support the quality of life that we have across the nation. Those dollars build hospitals, they build highways, they build schools, they build long-term care centers for our families. These are the infrastructure and services that these resource industries support in Saskatchewan, across Canada. And today, because of the challenges that we have, it is so much more difficult for us to contribute to the nation. And we are a proud contributor. But through these investments, we contribute. Through equalization, we contribute. Because our resource sector, we're contributing less because our resource sector, and as a matter of fact, all of our sectors, are under attack. They're under attack from the federal government that has introduced Bill C-69, Bill C-48. We have tougher federal methane regulations that we're working towards. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have, as of last week, a carbon tax in our province. A carbon tax that was described by many of your MLA, the member for Weyburn, our Environment Minister, the Honourable Dustin Duncan, and I quote, "A Justin Trudeau, Ralph Goodale, Liberal Party of Canada, job-killing, soul-sucking, unconstitutional, supported by the Saskatchewan NDP Party." Rather catchy, isn't it? Rather accurate as well. But don't get me wrong, in Saskatchewan, we accept that climate change is happening, and we even accept that humans are contributing to that. What we don't accept is that a carbon tax is in any way an effective tool to actually deal with that. What we don't accept is the federal government imposing this on our industries and our provinces and our families across the nation, in particular across this province that I have the honor of representing. The federal government's actual own research says that this isn't going to work in our province of Saskatchewan, and that shouldn't be a surprise because it actually hasn't worked anywhere else where it's been introduced. It certainly hasn't worked in British Columbia, where they've had it now for over a decade. Their emissions continue to rise. A carbon tax, quite simply, is the wrong policy for a jurisdiction like ours, with an export-oriented, energy-intensive economy that we participate in. It's the wrong policy, quite frankly, for Canada. A one-size-fits-all destructive carbon tax hurts workers, it hurts businesses, and it hurts families from coast to coast to coast in this nation. But there's good news in all of this. Surprised you with that, didn't I? There's a better way. There's another path for us to follow. It's the path that we have been on in this province. Our government has recently released our climate change strategy. It's called the Prairie Resilience, a plan that recognizes the reality of our province and recognizes the reality of the industries that operate in our province, and it actually reduces emissions in our province, unlike a carbon tax. The difference between the two is that our Prairie Resilience strategy was actually designed alongside industry. We worked with industry to ensure that we could achieve what is possible. And we want to continue to encourage our Saskatchewan industries to find innovative solutions, and there's a key word, innovation, to ensure that we continue to do better for that next generation. We all have kids, and we all care. For example, our Sask Power Company is expanding their renewable capacity. We're moving to 50% renewables of our generating capacity by the year 2030. We've invested more than $1 billion in a world-leading carbon capture project at Boundary Dam 3 near Estevan. And Saskatchewan actually, and I participated in these conversations, yes, is that we are a global leader when it comes to carbon capture and storage. In the last 5 years alone, here's the opportunity. Here's the opportunity that we have as a world moving forward with carbon capture. In the last 5 years alone, China has added 191,000 megawatts of coal-fired power generation, just coal-fired. That's about 150% what Canada does each and every year total. All new, all coal. And that's just in China. Today there are 1,600 new coal-fired power plants that are being built or planned around the world. Imagine the possibility for emissions reductions with innovation like carbon capture and storage. The work that we have done in Estevan at Boundary Dam 3, and I say we collectively as a province, will have more impact on greenhouse gas emissions than a federal carbon tax could ever actually hope to have. Innovation in carbon capture and storage needs to be recognized. The federal government should also recognize the contribution of the clean, sustainable nuclear power industry around the world that is supplied with Saskatchewan uranium. It should acknowledge the work, the great work that is done in our agriculture industry. The role of our farmers and ranchers, our researchers, and our equipment manufacturers have played in reducing global emissions is tremendously valuable and not talked about enough. Not only are we carbon neutral in our crop agriculture in this province, and no one else in the world can actually make that statement but this province. We manufacture and we export now air drills all around the world. And I think of Borgo, I think of Seed Hawk and Seedmaster, and I think of Morris, and I think of Pillar Laser Works, and I probably missed some, but there's more. We export those to places like Russia and Kazakhstan and the United States where they're actually using that technology, that innovation that was developed by you in this room and us in this province to reduce carbon emissions in those faraway places. And of course we use those air drills right here in Saskatchewan. We're going to use a bunch of them here in just a week or two. Zero-till combined with the huge increase in pulse crops has actually helped turn Saskatchewan soils into an enormous carbon sink over just the course of the last 20 or 25 years. New technology continues to cut our greenhouse gas emissions by many millions of tons each year. For example, also in agriculture, many of you in this room that showed up in a truck today, you drove a diesel engine to get here. Well, tractors, trucks that you drive today, as we all know, are so much more efficient than they were just a few years ago, and this needs to be acknowledged as well as we move forward by our federal government. Ladies and gentlemen, let me close with this. We continue in this nation to have the wrong conversation. We need to change the conversation. We need to shift our focus away from an ineffective carbon tax towards innovation and technology and what research and science can do for us. In Saskatchewan, we've already done that. We're already making a difference in all of these areas, in all of our industries. In Saskatchewan, we are actually making a difference in the fields. We're making a difference in the research labs. We're making a difference at the bottom of our mine shafts, at the top of our oil derricks, and we're making a difference on the highway each and every time we drive one of those trucks down. Saskatchewan is making a difference across this nation by leading the opposition to a federal carbon tax. And very soon, we are going to hear about the difference that will be made in the courtroom. Hear, hear. And after we hear from that courtroom, we will see something totally different in Ottawa. A government, we will look for a government that supports our Saskatchewan energy industry. We will look for a government that supports our Saskatchewan agriculture industry. We will look for a government that supports our Saskatchewan mining and manufacturing industries, a government whose first priority, whose singular objective is to get our province and get our nation working again. We look forward to that day. Let me tell you, it can't come soon enough.
In closing, this concludes today. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today who were here. All of our organizers, EDRABS in Queensbury, the City of Regina, all of the police services along the route for making today safe and a success. But I'd like to thank everybody in this room. You've made this rally a success. This is your rally, and let's keep carrying that message as we leave here. And keep carrying on that message and fighting against this injustice. And I just want to let everyone know, City Police will direct traffic for the next hour. Be patient, please, be safe. It's going to be rush hour soon, but stick around and visit if you want. All heavy trucks, exit onto the blue van, please. Safe travels home. Thank you very much.